Nathan Porter slouched in his seat at the back of Mr. Harrison's history class, trying his best to become invisible. The clock on the wall seemed frozen at 2:45 p.m. Still 15 minutes until the bell would ring and free him from another day of just trying to get by unnoticed at Westlake High. "And remember," Mr. Harrison said, adjusting his glasses, "your papers on the Civil War are due this Friday." Nathan flinched slightly. He didn't mind that Mr. Harrison had a stutter too. In fact, he found it somewhat comforting to know he wasn't the only one who struggled with words. What bothered him was how some students would mimic the teacher behind his back, the same way they mocked Nathan when he was called on to speak in class. As if on cue, from 2 rows ahead, Nathan caught sight of Aiden Chen leaning over to whisper something to Zach, another basketball player. Both boys snickered quietly, their eyes darting toward Mr. Harrison. Nathan's stomach knotted. He knew that look all too well. When the bell finally rang, Nathan gathered his books slowly, waiting for the initial rush of students to clear before making his own exit. He'd learned that moving through crowded hallways was safer when they were half empty. Fewer shoulders to bump into, fewer chances for unwanted attention. "Hey, Porter, wait up!" Nathan froze, his hand tightening around the strap of his backpack. That voice belonged to Aiden Chen, captain of the basketball team and unofficial king of Westlake's social hierarchy. In Nathan's experience, when someone like Aiden called your name, it rarely ended well. He considered pretending he hadn't heard. But Aiden was already jogging up beside him, his perfectly styled hair not moving an inch despite the movement. "I've been looking for you," Aiden said, flashing the smile that had won him most photogenic in last year's yearbook. You have?" Nathan managed, immediately hating how his stutter emerged when he was nervous. "Yeah, man. Listen, I wanted to talk to you about something." Aiden slung an arm around Nathan's shoulders like they were old friends, steering him toward the wall as other students streamed past. "You know about the talent show next month, right?" Nathan nodded cautiously. The annual Westlake Talent Showcase was a big deal. Essentially a variety show where students performed everything from serious musical pieces to comedy sketches. It was also something Nathan had always observed from the audience, never once considering participating. "Well, I'm on the student committee this year," Aiden continued. "Principal Wilson says we need more diverse acts. Not just the choir kids and band geeks, you know." Nathan didn't know where this was going, but the warmth of sudden inclusion was both foreign and intoxicating. Was Aiden Chen actually having a normal conversation with him? Anyway, Liv mentioned she heard you in English last week when Ms. Chen made everyone read their poems aloud. Nathan's face flushed hot with embarrassment. That day had been torture. Standing in front of 24 pairs of eyes, trying to push words past the blockage in his throat. Ms. Chen had been kind, patient, but he'd still heard the whispers, seen the exchanged glances. "I wasn't very good," he mumbled. "No, man, that's just it." Aiden's eyes widened with what looked like genuine enthusiasm. "Liv said you were amazing once you got going. Said your poem was deep and all that artistic stuff." Nathan blinked in surprise. Olivia Parker had thought his poem was good? The same Olivia who was head cheerleader and Aiden's on-again, off-again girlfriend? "So here's what I'm thinking," Aiden continued, lowering his voice conspiratorially. "We need more guys in the showcase. Not just the theater kids, but regular dudes. What if you did some spoken word or something? Your poem thing?" The hallway suddenly seemed too bright, too loud. Nathan felt his palms begin to sweat. "I can't," he stammered, the words catching painfully. Look, I get being nervous," Aiden interrupted smoothly. "But think about it, this could be huge for you. The showcase is kind of a big deal. Even college scouts sometimes come to check it out." Nathan shook his head more firmly. "I can't talk in front of people." Aiden's friendly expression flickered for just a moment before returning. "It's just a stutter, man. People will get past it once they hear what you've got to say. Trust me, just a stutter." As if it were a small thing and not the wall that had isolated Nathan for as long as he could remember. "I don't know," Nathan said, managing to get the short phrase out without stumbling. "Just think about it," Aiden pressed, already backing away toward a group of his friends waiting further down the hall. "Sign-up deadline is this Friday. It could really change things for you, you know?" As Aiden rejoined his friends, Nathan couldn't help noticing how they huddled together, glancing back in his direction. Something cold settled in his stomach. This sudden interest didn't make sense. Why would someone like Aiden Chen care about getting him into the talent show? The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur. During his last class, Nathan couldn't focus on the lesson about photosynthesis. Instead, his mind kept circling back to Aiden's suggestion. Part of him, a small, desperate part, wanted to believe this was a genuine opportunity. Maybe Olivia had actually liked his poem. Maybe this could be a turning point. The other part of him, the part shaped by years of being overlooked or mocked, whispered warnings. Walking home that afternoon, Nathan took the long route through Mapleton Park. The autumn air was crisp, leaves crunching beneath his feet as he followed the winding path. Here, alone among the trees, he sometimes practiced speaking aloud, forming sentences without the pressure of waiting eyes or impatient sighs. "I could do the tea talent show," he said to no one, testing the words. Then again, stronger, "I could do the talent show." What if Aiden was right? What if people could get past his stutter if what he had to say was worth hearing? The thought both terrified and thrilled him. At home, the small apartment was empty. His mom wouldn't be back from her shift at the hospital until after 7. Nathan made himself a sandwich and carried it to his room, where he dug through his backpack until he found his English notebook. The poem Ms. Chen had made them write was still there, marked with a red A and a note, "Powerful imagery. Your voice shines through here." His voice. The irony wasn't lost on him. Nathan flopped onto his bed, staring at the ceiling. Why was he even considering this? Standing on stage in the auditorium, lights beating down, hundreds of eyes watching, waiting for him to trip over his words. It was a recipe for humiliation. Yet something about the possibility tugged at him. For once being seen, really seen, not as the quiet kid with the stutter, but as someone with thoughts worth hearing. His phone buzzed with a text notification. Nathan reached for it, expecting it to be his mom saying she'd be late again. Instead, it was a number he didn't recognize. "Hey, it's Liv. Got your signatures from school directory. Aiden said he talked to you about the showcase. You should totally do it. Your poem in class was..." Nathan stared at the screen, reading and rereading the message. Olivia Parker had texted him, had actually gotten his number specifically to encourage him. Before he could overthink it, he typed back, "Thanks. Still thinking about it." 3 dots appeared immediately then. "Do it. We need more real talent, not just the same people every year." Something warm unfurled in Nathan's chest. Recognition. It was such a small thing, yet so unfamiliar. The next day at school, something strange happened. People noticed him, not in the usual way, not the sidelong glances when he struggled through an answer in class, but with smiles, with nods of acknowledgement in the hallway. In the cafeteria, as Nathan headed for his usual solitary corner table, Zach waved him over to where he sat with some of the basketball team and their girlfriends. "Porter, over here, man." Hesitantly, Nathan changed course, his lunch tray clutched tightly between sweating hands. "Heard you might do the showcase," Zach said as Nathan cautiously took the empty seat beside him. "That's cool. I haven't decided yet," Nathan replied, bracing for the familiar mocking of his stutter. It didn't come. "You should," said Tori, a girl with bright blue streaks in her dark hair. "It gets so boring with the same acts every year." "Yeah," Olivia chimed in from across the table, her smile seeming genuine. "And Ms. Chen would probably help you practice if you asked." For the next 20 minutes, Nathan sat in stunned silence, occasionally managing a response as conversation flowed around him. They weren't exactly talking to him, but they weren't excluding him either. It was as if a door had cracked open to a world he'd only observed from a distance. By Friday, Nathan had made his decision. After his last class, he made his way to the activities office and added his name to the sign-up sheet for the Westlake Talent Showcase. His hand trembled slightly as he wrote spoken-word poetry in the description field. As he turned to leave, he nearly collided with Ms. Chen, who was entering the office with a stack of papers. "Nathan," she exclaimed, steadying herself. "Sorry about that. My fault," he mumbled. Her eyes drifted to the sign-up sheet behind him, and her expression brightened. "Are you participating in the showcase?" "That's wonderful." Nathan nodded, not trusting his voice. "If you need any help preparing, my classroom is open during lunch or after school," she offered. "I'd be happy to give feedback." Thank you," Nathan managed, a mix of terror and excitement churning in his stomach. As he left the activities office, he caught sight of Aiden and several others huddled near the water fountains. They were laughing about something but fell suddenly quiet when they spotted him. Aiden raised a hand in acknowledgement and the others smirked. For just a moment, doubt crept back in. But then Nathan remembered Olivia's text, Ms. Chen's encouragement, and the unfamiliar feeling of being included at lunch. Maybe things really were about to change. Maybe for once the spotlight wouldn't be so bad. What Nathan didn't see was the phone in Zach's hand, open to a group chat titled Operation Stutter Stage, or the message Aiden sent moments after Nathan walked away. He took the bait. This is going to be epic. The weekend after signing up for the talent show, Nathan spent hours alone in his bedroom staring at a blank notebook page. He'd promised himself he would write something new, something meaningful. But each time he put pen to paper, doubt crept in like a shadow. What if his poem wasn't good enough? What if he froze on stage? What if his stutter took over completely? By Sunday evening, his trash can overflowed with crumpled papers, each containing half-formed ideas and crossed-out lines. His mom knocked gently on his door, poking her head in with tired eyes that still managed to shine with warmth. "Everything okay in here, honey? You've been awful quiet today." Nathan hesitated. He hadn't told her about the talent show yet, afraid that saying it aloud would make it too real, too terrifying. "I'm fine," he said, covering his notebook with his arm. "Just homework." She didn't look convinced but didn't push. That was one thing he loved about his mom. She knew when to give him space. "There's leftover lasagna in the fridge when you're hungry," she said, stifling a yawn. "I'm heading to bed early. Morning shift tomorrow." After she left, Nathan picked up his phone, scrolling through social media mindlessly until a notification caught his eye. Olivia had tagged him in a post about the talent show. His heart leaped to his throat as he tapped to see what she'd written. Excited to see all the amazing acts in this year's showcase. Nathan Porter bringing some poetry fire. Westlake talent. The post already had dozens of likes and several comments. Nathan read through them with growing unease. Can't wait. This show's going to be unforgettable. Best one yet for sure. They seemed supportive on the surface, but something about the winking emojis and the way Aiden had replied with just made Nathan's stomach twist. Still, seeing his name alongside words like amazing and fire sent a confusing rush of pride through him. Maybe they really did believe in him. Monday morning arrived with a fresh wave of anxiety. Nathan walked through the front doors of Westlake High with his shoulders hunched, half expecting everyone to be staring at him. Instead, what he got was far more unsettling. Smiles, nods, a couple of hey-mans from people who had never acknowledged his existence before. In English class, Ms. Chen handed back their latest assignments. When she reached Nathan's desk, she paused. "I heard you signed up for the showcase," she said quietly, her eyes kind behind her glasses. "That's brave. If you'd like any help preparing, my door is always open." "Thank you," Nathan managed, genuinely touched by the offer. By lunchtime, the initial thrill of positive attention had worn off, replaced by a nagging sense of something not quite right. In the cafeteria line, he overheard two juniors talking ahead of him. "Gonna be hilarious," one was saying. "Aiden says the kid can barely get a sentence out. Kinda mean, though, isn't it?" The other replied, sounding uncomfortable. "It's just a joke. Besides, he's the one who signed up." Nathan's appetite vanished. He abandoned his tray and slipped out of the cafeteria, heart pounding. In his rush to escape, he didn't watch where he was going and collided with someone rounding the corner. "Whoa, easy there," a voice said as hands steadied him. Nathan looked up to find Zach staring down at him. Eyebrows raised. "Sorry," Nathan mumbled, trying to step around him. "Hold up," Zach said, blocking his path. "You good? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I'm fine." Zach studied him for a moment. "Listen, Aiden was wondering if you've picked what you're gonna perform yet. He's trying to figure out the program order." Not yet," Nathan admitted, wanting nothing more than to escape this conversation. "Better get on that, man. Show's in 3 weeks." Zach gave him a friendly punch on the arm that was just a little too hard. "It's gonna be memorable, that's for sure." As Zach walked away, Nathan leaned against the wall, trying to calm his racing thoughts. The pieces were starting to come together, and the picture they formed made his chest ache with humiliation. This had never been about including him. He was the entertainment, not for his poetry, but for his struggle to speak. For the rest of the day, Nathan moved through his classes in a fog of realization and hurt. The occasional thumbs up from Aiden's friends, once so surprising and welcome, now felt like daggers of mockery. After the final bell, instead of heading straight home, Nathan found himself wandering toward Ms. Chen's classroom. He hadn't consciously decided to take her up on her offer, but his feet seemed to have made the choice for him. The door was open, and Ms. Chen sat at her desk, grading papers. She looked up when he appeared in the doorway, her face breaking into a genuine smile. "Nathan, come in," she said, gesturing to a chair beside her desk. He hesitated, suddenly unsure why he'd come. "Everything okay?" she asked, her smile fading as she took in his expression. "I made a mistake," he blurted out before his courage could fail him. "The talent show. I shouldn't have signed up." Ms. Chen set down her pen and gave him her full attention. "What happened?" The kindness in her voice nearly undid him. He sank into the chair, eyes fixed on his hands. "It's a J-joke," he said finally. "They don't think I'm good. They just want to watch me stutter on stage." Understanding dawned on Ms. Chen's face, followed quickly by a flash of anger that she quickly masked. "I see," she said carefully. "And you're sure about this?" Nathan nodded miserably, recounting what he'd overheard in the cafeteria. As he spoke, his stutter grew worse, as it always did when he was upset. Ms. Chen listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "You have two choices," she said finally. "You can withdraw from the showcase, which is absolutely your right. No one would blame you, or?" Nathan asked, sensing there was more. A small smile played at the corners of her mouth. "Or you could surprise them all." "How?" "By being extraordinary." She leaned forward. "Nathan, I've been teaching for 15 years. I know talent when I see it. Your poetry has something many students lack: genuine emotion and unique perspective." Nathan shook his head. "But my stutter can actually be a strength in spoken word poetry," Ms. Chen interrupted. "Many performers use intentional pauses and varied rhythms. The key is owning it, making it part of your art instead of fighting against it." The concept was so foreign that Nathan could only stare at her. "Look," she continued, "I won't pretend it would be easy. It would take work, practice, courage. But if you're willing to try, I'd be happy to help you prepare. We could meet after school, work on your piece, practice delivery techniques." "Why would you do that?" Nathan asked, genuinely confused by her offer. Ms. Chen's expression softened. "Because I believe teachers should lift students up, not tear them down. And because I think you have something important to say." Nathan thought of Aiden and his friends, of their smirking faces as they waited for him to fail. Then he thought of how it would feel to prove them wrong, to turn their cruel joke into something else entirely. "When can we start?" he asked. Ms. Chen smiled. "How about right now?" For the next hour, they talked about spoken word poetry. Ms. Chen showed him videos of famous performers, pointing out how they use their voices, their bodies, their faces to convey emotion. Some spoke rapidly, others deliberately slow. Some practically sang their words, while others almost whispered. "The key," she explained, "is finding your authentic voice, not trying to sound like anyone else." By the time Nathan left school that day, something had shifted inside him. The hurt was still there, but alongside it grew something new, a tiny spark of determination. At home, he locked himself in his room and pulled out a fresh notebook. This time, when he put pen to paper, the words came more easily. He wrote about masks and expectations, about silence and finding voice. It wasn't perfect, but it felt true. The next day after school, he returned to Ms. Chen's classroom with his rough draft. She read it silently, nodding occasionally, making small notes in the margins. "This is excellent," she said when she finished. "Now let's hear it." Nathan's stomach dropped. Reading aloud was always when things fell apart for him. "I can't," he stammered. "You can," she insisted gently. "Just us in this room. Start slow, one line at a time." Reluctantly, Nathan began to read. The first few lines were halting, broken by his stutter. But Miss Chen didn't rush him or finish his sentences like others often did. She just waited patiently, nodding encouragingly. By the third stanza, something strange began to happen. As he connected more deeply with the words he'd written, his stutter began to ease. Not disappear, but somehow matter less. "That's it," Miss Chen said when he finished the poem. "That right there. Did you feel the difference?" Nathan nodded, a little dazed. "But I don't know if I can do that in front of everyone." "Not yet," she agreed. but with practice I believe you can. As the days passed, Nathan fell into a new routine. Classes during the day, trying to ignore the occasional comments and looks from Aiden's group. Then afternoons with Ms. Chen, refining his poem and practicing his delivery. Sometimes when his stutter was particularly bad, frustration would overwhelm him and he'd want to quit. But Ms. Chen never lost patience, never stopped believing. 1 week before the showcase, Nathan stayed late after their regular session, pacing Ms. Chen's classroom as doubt crashed over him in waves. "I can't do this," he said, panic rising in his throat. "Everyone will laugh at me." "They might," Ms. Chen acknowledged, surprising him with her honesty. "Some people might laugh, but others won't, and Nathan, this isn't about them anyway. It's about you claiming your voice regardless of what anyone else thinks." Nathan stopped pacing, her words hitting him like a physical force. "When I was your age," Ms. Chen continued, her voice softer now, "I was terrified of public speaking too. Not because of a stutter, but because I was painfully shy. Every time a teacher called on me, I felt like I might pass out." "What changed?" Nathan asked. Ms. Chen smiled. "I joined the debate team. On purpose?" Nathan couldn't hide his disbelief. She laughed. "Yes, on purpose. Because I was tired of being afraid. It was hard and I was terrible at first. But eventually I learned that the fear doesn't go away. You just build courage around it." As Nathan walked home that evening, her words echoed in his mind. Building courage around fear. Maybe that was what he'd been doing these past 2 weeks without realizing it. For the first time since discovering the truth about why he'd been nominated, Nathan allowed himself to imagine standing on that stage and actually succeeding, not just avoiding humiliation, but truly being heard. The image was so powerful it almost took his breath away. The final week before the talent show arrived with a mix of dread and strange anticipation for Nathan. In the hallways of Westlake High, whispers followed him everywhere. He caught fragments as he passed, his name, mentions of the showcase, occasional snickers. With each passing day, the pit in his stomach grew, but so did something else, a quiet resolve that surprised even him. During lunch on Monday, Nathan sat alone as usual, picking at his sandwich without much appetite. He glanced up to find Aiden and Zach entering the cafeteria, surrounded by their usual crowd. Their eyes locked for a moment, and Aiden flashed him a thumbs up that made Nathan's jaw tighten. 5 more days. Stutter boy. Aiden mouthed from across the room, grinning. Nathan looked away, focusing instead on the notebook beside his lunch tray where his poem lay hidden. Ms. Chen had helped him revise it 3 times now. With each revision, it had grown more honest, more raw. Parts of it still made Nathan uncomfortable. Putting his feelings about his stutter into words meant acknowledging vulnerabilities he'd spent years trying to hide. After school, he headed to Ms. Chen's classroom for what had become his daily practice session. Today, she had pushed the desks to the walls, creating an open space in the center of the room. "We're doing something different today," she announced as Nathan entered. "What?" he asked, immediately wary of change. "You've been practicing while sitting down," Ms. Chen explained. "But in the showcase, you'll be standing on stage." "We need to work on your physical presence," Nathan groaned. "Isn't the poetry hard enough?" "Your words are strong," she said with a gentle smile. "Now we need to make sure your body doesn't undermine them." For the next hour, Ms. Chen coached him on stance, on where to put his hands, on how to make deliberate eye contact rather than staring at the floor. She taught him how to breathe from his diaphragm, how to use pauses to his advantage. "Your stutter is most pronounced when you rush or when you're anxious," she pointed out. "So we build in intentional pauses. Make them work for you." By the end of the session, Nathan's legs ached from standing so long, and his throat felt raw from repeating certain phrases over and over. But when he finally performed the entire poem from start to finish, Miss Chen broke into applause. "That was your best run yet," she said, beaming. "You're ready." Nathan wasn't so sure, but for the first time, he thought maybe, just maybe, he could pull this off. As he was packing up his backpack, Miss Chen hesitated, then asked, "Have you told your mom yet? About the showcase?" Nathan shook his head. He'd been avoiding that conversation, partly because acknowledging it to his mom would make it all too real. "You should," Ms. Chen encouraged. "She might want to come see you perform." The thought sent a fresh wave of anxiety through him. What if I'm a mess up? "Then you mess up," Ms. Chen said simply. The world doesn't end. But Nathan, I don't think you will. That evening, as his mom stirred spaghetti sauce on the stove, Nathan leaned against the kitchen counter, gathering his courage. Mom? She looked up, brushing a strand of hair from her face with the back of her hand. There's a tea talent show at school. On Friday night, her eyebrows rose. Oh, that sounds fun. Are you going to watch? Nathan took a deep breath. Actually, I'm in it. The wooden spoon clattered against the pot as his mom's hand froze. You're performing. Nathan, that's wonderful. Her face lit up with pride and surprise. What are you doing? When did you decide this? The words tumbled out then. About signing up, about his poem, about practicing with Ms. Chen. He left out the part about Aiden and the cruel joke. No need to worry her. His mom listened, eyes shining. When he finished, she pulled him into a tight hug. I'm so proud of you, she whispered against his hair. So proud. Something in Nathan's chest loosened at her words. Even if he failed miserably on Friday, even if everyone laughed, his mom would still be proud of him for trying. Somehow that knowledge made the risk seem more worthwhile. The next day at school, something unexpected happened. As Nathan walked to his history class, Olivia fell into step beside him. Not just a passing hello, but actually walking with him. Hey, she said, adjusting her backpack strap. So you're really doing the showcase, huh? Nathan nodded, unsure where this was going. Cool. She hesitated, then added, listen, I heard some of the guys talking. About you. Nathan's stomach dropped. Here it was, confirmation of what he already knew. They think it's gonna be funny, she continued, her voice lower now. Watching you try to, you know. She made a vague gesture that Nathan assumed referred to his stutter. I know, he said simply. Olivia looked surprised. You do? I'm not saying stupid. Then why are you still doing it? There was genuine curiosity in her voice, not mockery. Nathan considered the question. Why was he going through with it? The answer came to him with surprising clarity. Because they're wrong about me, he said. For once, the words came out clear and strong. Olivia studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Good luck on Friday, she said finally before peeling off toward her own classroom. The interaction left Nathan feeling oddly energized. For the rest of the day, he carried himself with a little more confidence. During lunch, when he caught Zach staring at him and whispering to a teammate, Nathan stared right back until Zach looked away first. After school, his practice with Ms. Chen went better than ever before. Even the most difficult lines of his poem, the ones where his stutter typically flared, flowed more smoothly. Whatever's different today, keep doing it, Ms. Chen said, impressed. On Wednesday, Principal Wilson called a mandatory assembly for all students participating in the showcase. In the auditorium, Nathan sat apart from the others, listening as Principal Wilson went through the schedule and rules. Each act gets exactly 5 minutes, he droned. No exceptions, no extensions. As the principal continued, Nathan became aware of someone sliding into the seat beside him. To his shock, it was Olivia again. Hey, she whispered. Can I ask you something? Nathan nodded, bewildered by her sudden interest. Your poem, she said, her voice barely audible. What's it about? The question caught him off guard. He'd assumed she was still part of the joke, but her expression seemed genuinely curious. It's about being invisible, he said after a moment's hesitation, until someone wants to use you for a laugh. Olivia's face flushed and she looked down at her hands. I thought your poem in English class was really good, she said. That wasn't a lie. Before Nathan could respond, Principal Wilson dismissed them and Olivia hurried away, leaving Nathan more confused than ever. Thursday brought a fresh wave of anxiety as the showcase loomed just one day away. During English class, Nathan could barely focus on the lesson about symbolism in The Great Gatsby. His mind kept replaying every possible disaster scenario for tomorrow night. After class, Ms. Chen asked him to stay behind. Big day tomorrow, she said once they were alone. Nathan's throat felt too tight to speak, so he just nodded. Nervous? Terrified, he admitted. Ms. Chen smiled. Good, use it. Channel that energy into your performance. What if I freeze? What if I can't get the words out? Then you take a deep breath and start again, she said simply. Nathan, I've watched you grow so much these past few weeks. Whatever happens tomorrow night, you should be proud of that growth. Their final practice session that afternoon was different from the others. Instead of drilling him repeatedly, Ms. Chen had Nathan perform his poem just once all the way through without interruption or correction. When he finished, she didn't critique or praise. She simply said, "It's in your hands now." That night, Nathan barely slept. He lay awake staring at his ceiling, his poem repeating endlessly in his head. Sometimes in his imagination he delivered it perfectly. Other times he saw himself frozen on stage, unable to speak a single word while the audience erupted in laughter. By Friday morning, Nathan moved through school in a fog of exhaustion and nerves. The day passed in a blur of classes he couldn't focus on and conversations he couldn't follow. Everywhere, people seemed to be talking about the showcase. Several times he caught Aiden or one of his friends watching him with anticipation. At lunch, Nathan couldn't eat a bite. He sat with his untouched sandwich staring into space when someone dropped into the seat across from him. It was Zach wearing an unsettling grin. "Big night tonight, Porter," he said, leaning forward. "You ready?" Nathan shrugged, not trusting his voice. "A bunch of us made sure to get front row seats," Zach continued. "Don't want to miss a second of your performance." The pause before the last word made its meaning clear. They were expecting a show. All right, but not the kind Nathan was preparing. "Thanks for the support," Nathan replied, his tone flat. Zach's grin faltered slightly at Nathan's lack of reaction. "Yeah, well, break a leg, I guess." He got up and walked away, glancing back once with a puzzled expression. When the final bell rang, Nathan didn't immediately leave school like most students eager for the weekend. Instead, he made his way to the auditorium where the showcase would be held in just a few hours. The large room was empty now, the stage lit only by a few work lights. Nathan walked slowly down the center aisle, his footsteps echoing in the cavernous space. The stage looked enormous and intimidating from this angle. Slowly he climbed the steps at the side and stood center stage, facing the empty seats. This was where he would stand tonight, in front of hundreds of his peers, teachers, parents. The thought made his palms sweat and his heart race. "You can do this," he whispered to himself, his voice sounding small in the empty auditorium. From somewhere in the back, a door opened, sending a shaft of light across the darkened seats. Nathan squinted, trying to see who had entered. "Nathan," Miss Chen's voice called out. "I thought I might find you here." She walked down the aisle toward him, a small package in her hands. "Checking out the battlefield?" she asked as she climbed the steps to join him on stage. "Something like that," he admitted. She held out the package. "I brought you something. A good luck charm of sorts." Nathan unwrapped it to find a small, smooth stone polished to a deep blue shine. "It's a lapis lazuli," Ms. Chen explained. "In ancient times, it was believed to give courage to the wearer and help them speak their truth." Nathan closed his fingers around the stone, feeling its cool weight in his palm. "Thank you," he said softly. Ms. Chen smiled. "You know, whatever happens tonight, you've already won by showing up." But as Nathan stood there on the empty stage, the stone clutched in his hand, he realized he wanted more than just to show up. He wanted to be heard, really heard, maybe for the first time in his life. The Westlake High Auditorium buzzed with excitement as students, teachers, and parents filed in for the annual talent showcase. Backstage, 12 nervous performers paced, practiced, or sat frozen in terror. Nathan was among the latter, perched on a folding chair in the corner, clutching the blue stone Ms. Chen had given him so tightly that his knuckles had turned white. "You okay there, Porter?" Mr. Reeves, the drama teacher in charge of the showcase, stopped by with his clipboard. "You're on 8th, right after Tori's dance routine." Nathan managed to nod, not trusting his voice. His mouth felt like it was stuffed with cotton. "Great. About 20 minutes. Then." Mr. Reeves patted his shoulder and moved on to check on the other performers. From his corner, Nathan could peer through a gap in the curtains. The auditorium was filling up quickly. In the front row, just as promised, sat Aiden and his friends, their faces lit with anticipation. A few rows back, Nathan spotted his mom, who had come straight from her shift at the hospital, still wearing her scrubs beneath a hastily thrown-on cardigan. And there, slipping into a seat on the aisle, was Ms. Chen, her face serene but her eyes alert as she scanned the crowd. The lights dimmed, and Principal Wilson took the stage to welcome everyone. His voice boomed through the speakers, but Nathan barely registered the words. The knot in his stomach had grown so tight he wondered if he might throw up. "Hey." A soft voice broke through his panic. Nathan looked up to find Olivia standing before him, dressed in the emerald green dress she would wear for her singing performance later in the show. "You still going through with it?" she asked. Nathan nodded, wondering why she kept seeking him out. Olivia bit her lip, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "Listen, I wanted to say, I'm sorry about all this." She gestured vaguely toward the stage. "It wasn't my idea, but I didn't stop it either." Before Nathan could respond, the first act was announced, a freshman playing the violin. The sweet, clear notes drifted backstage, momentarily cutting through Nathan's anxiety. "Why are you telling me this end now?" he whispered. Olivia shrugged, not meeting his eyes. "I guess I just wanted you to know that not everyone is waiting for you to fail." With that, she hurried away to prepare for her own performance. Acts 1 through 5 passed in a blur. Nathan watched absently as two girls performed a gymnastics routine. A boy played piano, a rock band covered an old Green Day song, and a junior did a comedy skit that had the audience roaring with laughter. Then came Tori's dance routine, the act right before his. "Nathan, you're on deck," Mr. Reeves called, motioning him to the side of the stage. Nathan stood on shaky legs and moved to the wings, watching as Tori spun and leaped across the stage to a pulsing hip-hop beat. She moved with such confidence, such grace. The audience clapped in rhythm, clearly enjoying every moment. When she finished with a dramatic pose, the auditorium erupted in applause. Tori took 3 quick bows, beaming with triumph, then skipped off stage right where Nathan waited. "Good luck," she whispered as she passed, without a trace of mockery. "Next up," announced Principal Wilson, "we have sophomore Nathan Porter with an original spoken-word poetry piece." A strange hush fell over the auditorium, followed by a few scattered whispers and snickers from the front row where Aiden and his friends sat, elbowing each other in anticipation. Nathan closed his eyes, gripping the blue stone one last time before slipping it into his pocket. 3 weeks of practice, hundreds of repetitions of his poem, Ms. Chen's patient coaching, his mother's proud smile. All of it had led to this moment. "Nathan Porter," Principal Wilson repeated, a note of impatience creeping into his voice. Taking a deep breath, Nathan stepped onto the stage. The lights were blinding. He could barely make out the audience beyond the first few rows, but he could feel their presence. Hundreds of eyes fixed on him, waiting. In the front row, Aiden leaned forward eagerly, phone held low, clearly ready to record whatever embarrassing disaster was about to unfold. Nathan approached the microphone at center stage. The silence in the auditorium was absolute, heavy with anticipation. His heart hammered in his chest, and for one terrifying moment he thought he might not be able to speak at all. He closed his eyes, remembering Ms. Chen's advice. "Find your center. Breathe from your diaphragm. The words are inside you, trust them to come out." "My piece is key called," he began, his stutter immediately obvious and pronounced. "Be visible." A few titters rose from the audience, quickly hushed. Nathan could feel his face burning. This was exactly what he'd feared, exactly what Aiden and his friends had been counting on. But then, in the darkness beyond the stage lights, he caught a glimpse of his mother leaning forward in her seat, her face a mixture of worry and fierce pride. And a few seats away, Ms. Chen gave him a small, encouraging nod. Nathan took another breath, deeper this time. He thought of the hours of practice, of the truth he'd poured into every line of his poem. He thought of Aiden's smirking face and all the times he'd been made to feel less than invisible except when he was the butt of a joke. And something shifted inside him. When he began again, his voice was different, still halting at times, but with a new intensity that seemed to vibrate through the microphone. "They think I'm invisible," he said, his eyes now open and focused just above the audience's heads as Ms. Chen had taught him. "Until they need a laugh." He paused, not out of fear now, but deliberately, letting the words hang in the air. "They see my stutter before they see me. They hear the breaks in my speech but miss the thoughts between them." Nathan could feel a new rhythm taking over, one that incorporated his natural speech patterns rather than fighting against them. When his stutter appeared, he leaned into it, using the repetition of sounds to emphasize certain words rather than rushing past them in embarrassment. "I am more than the pauses in my sentences, more than the broken syllables you mock." As he continued, his voice grew stronger. The initial snickers from the front row had died away completely. The entire auditorium was still, listening with an intensity Nathan had never experienced before. He was 3 stanzas in when he dared to look directly at the front row. Aiden's phone was no longer raised to record. Instead, he sat with a strange expression on his face, part confusion, part something Nathan couldn't quite identify. Encouraged, Nathan let more emotion into his voice, no longer just reciting the words but feeling them, living them. He spoke about the wall his stutter had built between him and others, about the loneliness of being seen as only one thing, about the courage it took to speak anyway. As he neared the final stanza, his voice broke not from his stutter but from the raw emotion of the moment. He could feel tears threatening, but he blinked them back and focused on finishing strong, just as he'd practiced. So hear me now, not for how I speak but for what I say. I am visible. I am here. And my voice, however it sounds, matters. The final word hung in the air as Nathan stepped back from the microphone, his heart pounding in his ears. For one terrible second there was complete silence. Had he failed after all? Had his message been lost in his delivery? Then, from somewhere in the middle of the auditorium, a single person began to clap. Nathan squinted against the lights, trying to see who it was. More applause joined in, spreading like ripples in a pond until the entire audience was clapping. Nathan stood frozen, unable to process what was happening. This wasn't the reaction he'd expected. Not the pity applause he'd feared, nor the mockery Aiden had planned. This sounded like genuine appreciation. As his eyes adjusted to the stage lights, he could make out more of the audience now. His mother was on her feet, tears streaming down her face as she clapped. Ms. Chen was standing too, beaming with pride, and scattered throughout the auditorium, others were rising from their seats. First a few, then dozens, until nearly the entire audience was standing. A standing ovation. For him, for his words. Nathan's legs felt weak with relief and disbelief. He managed a small bow, unsure of the proper protocol, then turned to leave the stage. As he did, his eyes met Aiden's in the front row. Aiden wasn't standing. He sat with an unreadable expression, his hands moving together in slow, almost reluctant applause. Backstage, Nathan collapsed onto a chair, his whole body shaking with adrenaline and emotion. The applause continued for several more seconds before finally dying down. "Nathan, that was—" Mr. Reeves appeared beside him, looking slightly stunned. "Well, I wasn't expecting that. None of us were." Before Nathan could respond, the backstage door burst open and his mother rushed in, wrapping him in a fierce hug. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered, her voice thick with tears. So proud. Over her shoulder, Nathan saw Ms. Chen enter more calmly, though her eyes shone with the same pride. "You did it," she said simply when his mother finally released him. "I did it," Nathan echoed, still not quite believing it himself. The next performer, a senior girl with a stand-up comedy routine, brushed past them on her way to the stage, looking somewhat intimidated. "How am I supposed to follow that?" she muttered. As the showcase continued, Nathan sat backstage in a daze, barely registering the remaining acts. Occasionally, other performers would approach him with congratulations or surprised comments. "Dude, that was intense," said one of the boys from the rock band. "I had no idea you could do that," said another. Even Tori, whose dance had received enthusiastic applause, stopped by to say, "You killed it out there, for real." By the time all 12 acts had performed and the audience was voting for their favorites, a strange calm had settled over Nathan. Whatever happened next, whether he won a prize or came in last place, he had already achieved something far more important than he'd imagined possible. He had been heard, really heard, and nothing would ever be quite the same again. The Monday after the talent showcase, Nathan walked into Westlake High, feeling like he'd entered an alternate universe. People who had never acknowledged his existence before now nodded or smiled as he passed. A girl from his math class stopped him to say she couldn't stop thinking about his poem. A senior he barely recognized clapped him on the shoulder with a simple, "Nice job, man." It was surreal, this sudden visibility after years of being overlooked or noticed only for his stutter. Nathan wasn't sure how to feel about it. Part of him was thrilled, but another part remained wary. After all, popularity could be just as fickle as cruelty. What made it even stranger was that he'd placed second in the showcase, just behind Olivia's haunting rendition of Hallelujah. Principal Wilson had handed him a small trophy and a gift card to the local bookstore, both of which now sat on his bedroom shelf. Second place, not a pity award or an honorable mention, but genuine recognition of his talent. As Nathan approached his locker, he spotted Zach leaning against the wall nearby, scrolling through his phone. Nathan tensed, old habits of caution kicking in, but Zach merely glanced up and gave a curt nod before walking away. No teasing, no mockery, just quiet acknowledgement. In English class, Ms. Chen greeted him with the same warm smile she always had, but there was a new pride in her eyes that made Nathan stand a little taller. When she handed back their latest assignments, she'd written at the bottom of his paper, "Your voice continues to grow stronger. Keep writing." At lunch, Nathan hesitated in the cafeteria doorway, tray in hand, unsure where to sit. His usual corner table felt somehow wrong today, like retreating back into invisibility after finally being seen. "Nathan, over here!" He turned to find Tori waving from a table near the center of the room. Beside her sat two other performers from the showcase, Ben from the rock band and Raj, who had done the comedy routine. Cautiously, Nathan made his way over, half expecting the invitation to be withdrawn at any moment. "That seat's open," Tori said, pointing to an empty chair. "Unless you'd rather sit alone?" No, Nathan said, sliding into the seat. "Thanks. We were just talking about maybe doing another showcase in the spring," Ben explained between bites of pizza. "Like one that's not part of the official school calendar. Just for fun, you know. Would you be interested?" Nathan blinked in surprise. "You want me to perform again?" "Dude, you were the highlight of the night," Raj said. "My parents wouldn't stop talking about your poem all weekend." "It was pretty incredible," Tori agreed. "Especially considering—" She trailed off, but Nathan knew what she meant. "Especially considering it was supposed to be a joke. Especially considering everyone expected him to fail." "Thanks," he said, warmth spreading through his chest. "I might be interested." The conversation shifted to other topics, classes, weekend plans, a new movie everyone was talking about. Nathan mostly listened, occasionally offering a comment when he felt comfortable. It wasn't perfect, his stutter still appeared, especially when he got excited about something, but no one seemed to mind or even notice particularly. He was so engrossed in the conversation that he didn't immediately notice when Aiden entered the cafeteria. It was only when the table fell momentarily quiet that Nathan looked up to see Aiden standing beside their table. His usual confidence noticeably dimmed. "Hey," Aiden said, his eyes fixed somewhere over Nathan's left shoulder. "Can I talk to you for a second?" "Alone?" The table went silent. Nathan felt everyone watching, waiting for his response. "Sure," he said after a moment, surprised by his own calmness. He followed Aiden to a quieter corner of the cafeteria, aware of the eyes tracking their movement. "Look," Aiden began once they were out of earshot, his voice low. "About the showcase. And well, everything before it." Nathan waited, saying nothing. Let Aiden struggle for words for once. "It was supposed to be a joke," Aiden continued, finally meeting Nathan's eyes. "A stupid, mean joke. And I'm sorry." The apology hung in the air between them. Nathan studied Aiden's face, looking for signs of insincerity, but found only discomfort and what appeared to be genuine regret. "Why are you telling me this now?" Nathan asked, echoing the question he'd asked Olivia backstage at the showcase. Aiden shrugged, looking away again. "Your poem, I guess. It made me think. About stuff I've never thought about before." "Like what?" "Like how it feels to be on the other side. To be the one everyone's laughing at." Aiden shoved his hands in his pockets. "And then to just prove everyone wrong like that. It was pretty badass, honestly. Nathan hadn't expected that. An apology, maybe, pushed by guilt or pressure from teachers, but not this awkward, stumbling attempt at understanding." "Thanks," he said simply. "Anyway," Aiden said, clearly eager to end the conversation, "I just wanted to say sorry. In that, well, your poem was really good." With that, he turned and walked away, rejoining his usual group at their table across the cafeteria. Nathan returned to his new lunch companions, who immediately peppered him with questions. What did he want? Did he apologize? "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Nathan assured them, surprised to find it was true. He just wanted to clear the air. That afternoon, Nathan headed to Ms. Chen's classroom. He'd been thinking about something all day and he needed her advice. He found her at her desk, grading papers as usual. "Nathan," she smiled, setting down her pen. "Come in. How are you holding up after your big moment?" "Good. Different." He took his usual seat beside her desk. "People keep talking to me." Ms. Chen laughed. "That tends to happen when you bare your soul through art. You made an impression." "That's actually why I wanted to talk to you," Nathan said. "I've been thinking about starting something." "A club, maybe?" Ms. Chen's eyebrows rose with interest. "What kind of club?" "A spoken word club," Nathan explained, the idea becoming clearer as he voiced it. "For people who want to express themselves but might be scared to. People who feel invisible like I did." "That," Ms. Chen said, "is an excellent idea, and very much needed at this school." "Would you be the faculty advisor?" Nathan asked. "I can't do it alone." "I would be honored," she replied without hesitation. Over the next few weeks, Nathan's life settled into a new rhythm. He still stuttered. That hadn't magically disappeared, but it no longer defined him in the eyes of his peers. He was now Nathan who wrote that amazing poem. Nathan who started the spoken word club. Nathan who helped shy freshman Tyler find his voice through writing. The spoken word club started small. Just Nathan, Tori, and 3 other students meeting in Ms. Chen's classroom on Wednesday afternoons. But it grew steadily. By the time winter break arrived, they had 12 regular members and were planning a small performance for the spring. One December afternoon, as Nathan was putting up flyers for the club's holiday gathering, he spotted Olivia coming down the hall. Things between them had been cordial but distant since the showcase. She'd been friendly enough when their paths crossed, but they hadn't really talked. "Hey," she said, stopping beside him. "The club seems to be doing well." "It is," Nathan agreed. "You should come sometime." Olivia hesitated. "I don't write poetry." "Neither did most of our members when they started," Nathan pointed out. "It's not about being good right away. It's about finding your voice," she smiled at that. "Maybe I will then." As she turned to go, Nathan called after her. "Olivia, I never said congratulations. For winning the showcase." "Thanks," she said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "But between us, you should have won. Your performance changed things. Mine was just pretty." After she walked away, Nathan finished hanging the flyer, thinking about how much had changed in such a short time. The joke that was supposed to humiliate him had instead set him on a path to finding strength he never knew he had. That evening, as Nathan walked home through the park, his phone buzzed with a text from his mom. "Running late. Leftovers in fridge. Love you." Nathan texted back a quick acknowledgement, then detoured to a bench overlooking the small pond. He pulled out his notebook, a new one gifted by Ms. Chen when the first had filled up, and began to write. The words came more easily now, flowing onto the page without the paralyzing self-doubt that had once blocked him. He was working on a new piece for the spring showcase that the Spoken Word Club was organizing. This one wasn't about pain or invisibility. It was about transformation, about the unexpected ways we find our paths, about the power of being heard. As the winter sun began to set, casting golden light across the frozen pond, Nathan read over what he'd written. It needed work, but the core was strong. Like him. His phone buzzed again, this time with a message from Tori. "Club meeting tomorrow confirmed. Tyler's finally ready to share his poem." Nathan smiled, remembering Tyler's face when he'd first joined the club. Terrified, convinced he had nothing worthwhile to say, much like Nathan himself not so long ago. Now the freshman was ready to share his work with the group, taking that first brave step toward being heard. "That's awesome," Nathan texted back. "Tell him I'm proud of him." As he tucked his phone away, Nathan thought about the strange, winding path that had brought him here. If someone had told him 3 months ago that Aiden's cruel joke would lead to this, to finding his voice, to helping others find theirs, he would never have believed it. Yet here he was, no longer the boy who hid in corners hoping to be overlooked. His stutter was still part of him, but now it was just one part, not the whole. He was more than the pauses in his speech. He was a writer, a performer, a mentor, a friend. Nathan closed his notebook and stood, taking a deep breath of the crisp December air. The path ahead wouldn't always be smooth, he knew that. There would still be days when words failed him, when old insecurities resurfaced, when being seen felt too vulnerable. But he also knew something else now, something powerful that could never be taken away. His voice, however it sounded, mattered, and by helping others find their voices, he had discovered the most important truth of all, that what began as a cruel joke had become not just a single standing ovation, but a whole new way of moving through the world, visible, heard, unafraid.